Hello, this is Ron from the Asia Poker Academy, and I want to talk to you about something called the B game. Now, a while ago, I wrote on my blog, as you can see here, an article called Headache Free Hold'em for Your B Game. Now, I talk about a lot of things here, why we need a B game all of a sudden, but basically, I'm doing this video so that you can read the blog and then see the video to see how this B game works. Now, as I wrote here, there are times where no matter how I go about my grind, there are always days when I don't feel like the well-oiled grinding machine that I like to be. It just happens that way, that not everything is clicking. And so for these times, I like to downshift to what I call a B game and keep it simple until I recalibrate and get my A game back on track. So for this video, I'm going to show you how I apply some of my B game reminders, like the basic rules of engagement, as you can see here, my mantra, small hand, small pot. So you're going to see how for this B game that you can go to a value only mode and still get by and have a good grind. So we'll be doing some micros B game action here on Cake. I have, for convenience, open here on the on the right side from my blog post, the B game reminders. So just following these should make the game a little easier for me. Not a crushing game, but at least something that will stop the bleeding. I won't even have a HUD on for this session, just to demonstrate that you can play this fairly straightforward, even without a HUD, while you cool down your B game. So, previous hand, just for the sake of the video, I posted in the cutoff just to get this video going, but I was not gonna cold call that in the spirit of having a good starting hand selection and sticking to it. Now when people start to tilt, hands like 6-8 of spades become automatic cold calling hands from late position, especially when you're stuck. So when we bust it down to the B game, we're not gonna do that kind of stuff. We're gonna keep it simple. We're gonna play a value only game, and we are not gonna do anything too heroic. Now the assumption here is that we are slightly off our game. We've been raising in the wrong spots, calling in the wrong spots, and we want to sit back and regroup without necessarily killing the session. Because sometimes good things can still happen. So don't just kill your session the first time you think you had a bad start. You have to tough it out and have some kind of way to continue. So this is a hand, even in silvering, I would normally raise. Facing a raise, squeezed in position, we are not going to do that. So, probably going to get sat out. This one first to come in. I still have a pretty decent starting hand selection. It's kind of wide and I will open, but we get to exercise keeping the spot small if we meet resistance and playing a value only style. Now, I know you're going to be afraid that we're going to get exploited, we're going to fold a lot of flops, and we're going to fold to a lot of moves like this, but that's okay. The whole process here is about realizing or reconstructing your faith in the system that you have, in the talent that you have, that we are not going to go crazy just because we're stuck, and we actually have a hand that can stack somebody. So yes, this guy could be squeezing. If I turned on the HUD, it might even show it. But just continuing with this hand is not in the spirit of this little rule here. Don't be a hero. And we're playing value only for this session. Jack 9 offsuit, I'll take a free flop, but I am not going to see a flop out of position. Do not accept the proposition where you'll be out of position. And this is one such proposition, so not gonna do it. Again, the big blinds, same thing here. If I so much as think of playing this hand, it's going to be with a raise. But since we are going to a value only mode, we are gonna let this guy steal from us for now. Of course, we're assuming all my reads have been off today. Everyone's been tricky, and I'm just trying to get through this session, because the alternative is to quit the session. And if every time we meet resistance and we quit a session, it's not going our way, guess what? You're not playing enough of a volume to stay sharp or to make a profit. Somebody's gonna make a mistake eventually, or we are gonna get a hand that's gonna have value, or we are gonna get sat out over and over by cake software. The key here always is to keep your cool, stay calm, and find good spots. And remember that poker is about finding good spots, not always about going after every pot just because you happen to have some kind of interest in it. Small blind, not gonna play it to a raise. Here we're gonna steal as usual, but we are gonna be very careful after the steal. We get 3-bet, we'll be gone for now. Oh, that is annoying. It's almost sarcastic, the applause. So here we have nothing there. We have a 3-betting hand, so we are going to 3-bet as normal. A lot of people slip into their B game and start just flat calling ace-king because they lose faith. They think they keep missing flops, etc., etc. But you know what? Play it as you would, and just keep it steady as you go. So we are going to c-bet this board. We're representing a hand that could hit this. Now he donks into us. If I was feeling sharp, I could do a bunch of moves here. I could raise over him because he's donking. But since we are playing a value only mode here, this is going to look really weak, but I'm going to fold this for now. We're still topping up, of course. We're doing all the things that we normally do with regards to our poker discipline. Staying topped up, raising when we should, folding when we should, when we don't like our spots, getting out. You might say, Ron, this seems a little weak. I mean, it's almost weak tight. It probably is going to feel that way. You're going to feel like everyone's exploiting you, but that's just because when you're not on your A game, you tend to feel very itchy and you want to get in there swinging with all the other guys. And we are going to do that when we are on our A game. But for now, we're keeping it simple. We're going to set mine with this hand. We're going to miss it. We're going to fold it. We're going to hit the set. We're going to go for value. So we're going to raise here right away, nothing fancy. The board is very wet. SPR, this guy is going to be going in with almost anything that he has right now. So we might as well pop it, get his whole stack in, or get the pot. Keep it very simple. We're going for value. Instead we get the pot, and that's a good result. I know when we're stuck, we want to slow play that kind of hand and try to make back whatever we're stuck, whatever money we're stuck with. But that's the kind of stuff that you want to not have going on in your head. So here's a little rule. Decide early. Go or give up on the flop. Not late. Not in the river. So that's something we did earlier with our ace-king hand in the 3-bet pot. Just made up my mind on the flop that I didn't like where it was going, and we were gone. Here, just to be sure, when I say don't be a hero, absolutely no river calls when in doubt. An important thing when you're playing a B game to recover, to get the steam out of your system, is to just hold on. That value hand is going to come to you. It comes to everybody. You just need to still have a stack and still have your sanity when it comes to you and have your wits about you. Big blind with a nothing little hand, but the kind of hand that players on tilt like to see flops with because it might stack somebody. We are going to keep this one simple. Well, here we have an RWPC race with previous caller. I think we have value in doing so, so we're just going to pop it. Oh, I got sat out. We would have potted that and taken a c-bet. If it went multi-way, we would have just checked on our miss and given up on it. blind versus blind, so we're gonna go and raise it as usual. We're gonna ATS as usual, unless they play back excessively, and then we leave them alone for a while. So here, if he plays back, normally I wouldn't give up so easily, but since we are assuming that we are in B game mode, I'm gonna keep this simple. Either this works or it doesn't. If he flats, we're gonna fire a C bet as usual. And applause. Gotta be a way to turn that off. You know what? I'm getting used to it. I think it'll make me feel good. So now we're gonna go for applause again. That's me shifting in my seat. What? No applause? Also, you can see that I have a full ring and a 6-max table open, just to show that we can go B game for both. Think of B game as treading water before you keep swimming. I'm sure you noticed that we're skipping hands here. Of course, I don't want to bore you with all the junk folds that even in your worst tilt mode you would know not to play. So I'm just editing and skipping through those hands, just so we can see the hands that matter for the purpose of this video. So ATS till they play back, then leave them alone for a while. So we are now 2 for 2 stealing blind versus blind. This guy's gonna play back pretty soon and we'll adjust then. But for now, we keep going. One thing to watch is what your stealing range. When you think you're off your A game, it goes pretty high and pretty wide. This kind of hand starts entering your stealing range when you are off your A game. So you need to tone it down and stay aware of how you're feeling. If you're feeling like raising that 2-8 suited hand, then you need to know your A game isn't there. So we have an unraised spot. Don't put chips into unraised spots. We couldn't help it because we were big blind, so we're not gonna bloat this. I will probably take a stab at it on the river, but nothing more than that. It's a small hand, a small pot. And here I'll probably just take the check down and see the info. This hand I would definitely be stealing with. It's got some value, being a suited ace, something I can cold call. And according to our B game guidelines, we can cold call from the button, but never with a dominated hand. This is kind of a dominated hand, but we're not really going to try to hit the ace here. What we're trying to do is hit the flush or float the guy. So we're gonna float the guy, and if it doesn't work, we're done. This guy's shown that he's pretty solid, so we're gonna keep it simple. Check raise, then we're done. So we take one small stab at the pot. It doesn't work out. We're not gonna go 3-barreling. We're going 3-bet crazy. Here, we can see the flop multi-way with his hand, but we are not putting chips in accepting a proposition where we will be out of position and we don't have initiative. So, as tempting as it is to close the betting and come in and see that, we're not gonna do it. Just gonna avoid spots where we could have a headache. See, if I hit the middle pair in that previous hand, I'm probably not folding on the flop. Have to make some kind of play or some kind of tough decision on the turn. Just a lot of headaches. And when you're on tilt, off your game a bit, not feeling 100%, you want to avoid any spots where there are headaches. You get to see the flop free. Don't put chips into unraised spots. I saw this guy come in earlier, completing the small blind with something like 9-4. So this one, we're actually going to raise the pot. We're going to c-bet for value. We have a semi-bluff here. A draw to the nuts. And he goes all in. Here we go to our pot odds. We have to call $2 to win 5. We need 2:1. We have 2:1, so we're gonna do it. 2:1 to hit the flush by the river. Oh, somebody flopped a straight. Somebody flopped a straight. So that is kind of a biggish pot that you might think is, hey, I thought we were playing small hand, small pot. Well, just to keep it really simple, we just went with the pot odds on that one. It wasn't even implied odds. It was just express odds. We needed to call $2.45 to win a pot of slightly over 5. Pot was laying us 2-1. When you have the nut flush draw, you can review your pot odds chart. You will see that if you have 2:1 on an all-in situation to see the turn and river card, then you gotta make that call. So that, even though it was a pretty big pot, we put a lot of money in there. It was a basically headache-free decision. We let the math make the deciding, we put in the money, and then the results will take care of itself long run, even if we lose that pot. So this is the kind of stuff I mean, where you have to just have faith in the system, in the things that you know, and in what you've studied at the Asia Poker Academy. And you have to apply it. Do not be afraid. We're gonna set mine with this hand. Table's getting really short-handed, so we're about to leave this. Total whiff here. I'll check behind the flop, take a stab on the turn, representing a jack. And I could raise this, get him off the hand, but the plan was to set mine, keep it simple, keep it small, we're done. Hello, we got a 3-betting hand there. Value only, we're gonna go for it. Go for value. We get paid off or not, we keep it simple headed. If he goes over the top of us, then the pot starts to get big, but remember, we have to make our decision on the flop. Decide to go or give up. So had he raised me there, I would probably go with my hand just to keep it simple. So I'm about to leave this table. That's getting short, and we're gonna go into this one. Sit out. Get out. Yeah. King Queen, definitely in for a raise. Kind of mid to late here at the low jack. Gonna c-bet as usual with our usual range, usual textures that are worth c-betting. And then since we are in B game mode, we're mostly gonna be one and done. And if they feel they can exploit me that way, that's fine. We're gonna have to time it anyway. And there's going to be times where they try to exploit me and actually have a hand I'm already betting for value. Here I'm going to 3-bet this just as a re-steal, and then give it up if it doesn't work out right away. So we're going for outright value, and we get it. I could get used to that applause. What I'm going to do is I'm going to time all my sentences so that every time I finish a sentence, there's going to be applause. We are not cold calling with this hand. If you feel like you want to, then you need to take a good look inside and see where you stand emotionally. If you're thinking of cold calling with ace-3 offsuit just because you have the button, or just because you have a big ego and you think you can outplay everybody. When you're not at your best, keep it simple. You raise this. Interesting that there are actually 3 people watching this table. What are they doing? Just waiting for a seat and watching? I couldn't do that. I mean, they're not seeing any hold cards. That'd be pretty boring. We have 5 people watching this table here. Watching us fold. Who watches a full ring table? How bored do you have to be? These are probably data miners. So let's see, what have we done so far? We haven't put chips into unraised spots. Check. We don't accept propositions where we're out of position. Unless we have initiative. Check. We 3-bet only for value for now. We haven't gone crazy 2-barreling so far. We have kept our steals going. No one has really played back, so we have kept going. Some people have played back and we just gave up on it right away. We've been playing for value only. From late position stealing, we're going for the outright value of the dead money. So we haven't been executing any bluff lines. Of course, we haven't limped at all. And we have decided on flops whether we like our hand or not. In the case of the nut flush draw, and as would have been the case when we had top pair, top kicker, and we faced a check raise, we would have gone with that hand. Don't be afraid to get it wrong. The important thing is that you go with your read. Your reads will get better over time. You have to trust them. We have Queen 9 in the small blind folded to us. I'm gonna try to steal it, but gonna be very wary of this giant stack here. Since it's raised, we're not accepting proposition where we'll be out of position, especially facing a cold 3-bet. So that keeps it simple. 7 deuce. That thing will play itself. Either we flop 7 deuce or we throw away the hand. Well, just as I was saying that, it's not 7 deuce, it is Jack 7 deuce, and this is gonna have some value. So I'm gonna try to make a pot, price out the draws, and hope I do not get timed out here. If I do, it's just the universe trying to say, how easy can you be tilted? And the answer is not very easy. I have no investment in this hand. And now the flush has hit, and he's trying to check it out. Wow. Oh, we got lucky there. Somebody doesn't bet into a guy sitting out, and somebody isn't paying attention. Here is a simple set mining hand. We have the button. I know it's very tempting to, what the fuck is going on? Excuse my French, but I was saying, it's very tempting to miss the set, and when everyone checks to you, you turn your set mining hand into a bluffing hand. We're not gonna do that, especially now we have a full house. Now I know we're going for value only. This is a slow play situation. Although I think I'm gonna get value from tens, I'm just gonna flat call here, raise the turn. I do not want to see like an ace or a king on the turn. That could counterfeit my full house. But that would be a cooler. I'm definitely gonna try to get it in on this turn. So SPR is now about 4, so I'm gonna pot this and try to set up a river shove. Slight overbet here, signifying I don't have a 10, and we're getting exactly that direction. Oh, that's the cooler we were talking about. So that's not even a matter of walking into a loss because we slow played it. That was strictly cooler. The guy would have called on the flop had we raised, seen the turn. So we kept that simple. Okay. We went for value, we got coolered, and we move on with the hand. Now these are the kind of hands where you think you might want to stop playing. Like the poker gods are conspiring against you, but trust me, they're not. You play for any amount of time, any decent volume, you do that long enough and you're going to see this all the time. You'll be on the receiving end and you'll be on the giving end. The trick is to keep going and stick around for when it's your turn to cooler someone. Jack King and the low jack. There is a previous caller. Someone limps from under the gun. Could be a monster or just a small pocket pair. But I think I mostly have value against pocket pairs who give up on a lot of flops that miss their set. So we're gonna RWPC for the outright value of him folding to our c-bet. Now it's not the kind of board where pocket pair would give up, so we're not c-betting here. And neither is this one. If he had anything like pocket fives, he would continue with the hand. So now all we have is a king kicker. We're just gonna check it down. Why don't I even get to see what hand he had? That's something this cake software needs to work on. Can we look at it? Can we see it? Let's just give it his whole 30 minutes to load. Okay. 30 minutes later, this hand review will have loaded, and we're finally gonna know what we checked down against. But for now, on with the B game. This guy has done this a lot. So in the spirit of re-stealing, we're gonna go for outright value if this one doesn't call. So one and done here. And done. Applause. Thank you. You know what? I don't need to know. Hand unavailable. You keep your hand. Hijack. Raising his hand. C-betting as usual. On the usual textures. Now we are three-way. And we have a giant stack who has position on us, so we are going to be very selective about our c-bet this time. Especially something like this. Just going to check it, because anyone with a pocket pair isn't folding. Anyone with an ace is going to try to peel. Basically, if they like their hand pre-flop, they still like it now. So, we are done. So you'll notice that B game is actually quite boring, but I like to use the word relaxing instead. The point isn't that it's not Showtime poker anymore. Not for now. B game is calm the hell down poker. Get yourself back in gear. Get your bearings again. A lot of people think that focusing or staying focused, it's like a big giant effort that involves, you know, brain cells and applying your whole body and all your attention onto the screen. But a lot of it is just staying calm, being calm. Relaxing actually focuses you. There is something that some would call unconscious competence, and you have to be relaxed for that kind of stuff to kick in. So here we're betting for value against a bunch of draws. Anyone with an 8, and here we're also betting for value against anyone with a gut shot or a king. There's nothing fancy about the game. It's just about remembering, for me anyway, to do this stuff that I tell others to do. You know, a lot of coaches like to say, do as I say, not as I do. Well, here in this B game video, I'm actually also doing as I say. Keeping myself out of trouble. The only trouble we ran into so far was a cooler. Other than that, it's been pretty easy. Now because we can't fit too many tables into this video, we're only doing 2. But you can go B game with 6 tables or 8 tables of full ring. Actually, you'll find it's much easier. Not stressing yourself out. Try to be aware of what kind of stunts you pull right after a cooler. Do you get dealt like 2-3 suited and start playing it after a cooler? Or do you get too tight and start just not raising anymore after a cooler? Take note of that. And because that's the kind of stuff you might want to put into a post-it and remind yourself as your, you know, your false adjustments, if I may put it that way. After cooler, you need to move on. You need to forget about it. Move on. If your game has changed because of a cooler, you need to notice. Because if that's happening, then it's time for some B game for you. Queen 9 offsuit, small blind folded to us. We are going to raise as an attempt to steal. And then we're going to see bet as usual on the flop. We're not going to play the 3-bet pot. Not the time for that. Not during B game. Oh, what to do with this hand? Muck. Ace 3 off, folded to us. We're going to steal. Facing a raise, we're not going to play a dominated hand. If it was suited, we'd play it for the nut flush draw value. And we would see CPF because it's the button. But we're not going to commit with any kind of ace because we don't want to be committing with dominated hands. Check 8 in the big blind. We'll take the free look. And we're not playing this. I know it's really cheap. It's only 30 cents. We could stack a guy with some funky 2-pair, flop a straight, whatever. But we're not accepting a proposition where we are out of position unless we have initiative. We don't have initiative. If we want to play this hand, we want to have initiative, then we have to raise it. Now we have initiative. But now we're also entering big pot territory with a small hand. So how do we reconcile this? Well, we're only going for the outright value of taking his 50 cents. If he resists this, plays back at us, flop isn't favorable, we're done. So I don't mind risking 160 to get that money every now and then. So yes, as boring as B game may be, we still have a few moves in there. It's just that we stay really focused. If we're going for outright value, we're not turning our nothing hand into a 3-barrel bluffing hand. So here, I think I can 3-bet for value again. Also, there is dead money in there. And our hand actually has a chance to improve. A lot of boards we can c-bet. A lot of boards we won't. This is now a 3-bet pot. So there's also a lot of checking and folding for the purpose of this B game. So that was that. So we've basically seen most of the spots and what I wanted to show about how these B game reminders kind of apply when I'm not feeling my best. It's not an optimal way to play, but it's not going to get me into trouble. So I can keep the grinding habit. I can still play daily. And of all these reminders, the only spot we didn't really find is we didn't find a spot where we had to face a tough river call. But then again, if you play this B game the way I'm doing it, you'll find that there aren't really too many tough spots. Most of the spots are just made really easy. You don't get to the river with a bad hand. We're not trying to bluff catch with bottom pair. We're not out of position. So it's really, there aren't really too many spots where we have to put on the S on our chest and be a hero. So I hope that makes the point that you can have a B game. And you don't necessarily have to be exploited or losing just because you're playing your B game. Embrace it, but don't stay there forever. Just use it to get back up to speed, get your rhythm back, and then turn on your A game once you're feeling like your reads are back on, you're starting to read the ranges really well, everything is clicking again, then it's back to A game, and this one can be gone. This has been Ron for the Asia Poker Academy, and that is a little B game demonstration.